Florida Storage Miracle, From Dust to Classic Gold, Part 2. We posted photos online in a few classic car forums. Within 24 hours, my inbox exploded. Offers started coming in from collectors in California, New York, even Sweden. One guy wrote, "I've been looking for this model for 10 years. Name your price." Another simply said, $75,000 sight unseen. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just the best unit I'd ever won. It was my big break. But I didn't rush to sell it. Something about that car, the dust, the lines, the aura, just pulled me in. I had to know more. What was it doing in a storage unit in northern Florida? Who owned it? And how the hell did no one spot it during the auction? I called the storage facility the next morning. Yeah, the manager said, that unit's been unpaid for about 3 years. Belonged to some guy named Walter. Paid cash for everything. Never gave much info. Walter. No last name. No forwarding address. Just disappeared. The paperwork was minimal, but tucked into a cracked glove box inside the car was a faded envelope. Inside it, one old Florida registration card and a Polaroid. The car, shiny and pristine, parked in front of a 1960s-style beach house. A man and a woman smiling in front of it, holding a baby. I flipped the photo. On the back, June 67, Daytona Beach. That's when it started to feel personal. I started digging. Days turned into weeks. I took time off work, called DMV archives, emailed old-timers on vintage car forums. Eventually, I found something. The car was a 1954 Hudson Hornet Special Coupe, one of fewer than 50 ever made in that trim. Collectors knew about them. Museums whispered about them, but no one had seen one surface in years. And here it was, under a tarp, in a $680 unit I almost didn't bid on. The more I learned, the deeper I fell. The Hornet had once been the pride of stock car racing. Back in the 50s, this model dominated NASCAR. Sleek curves, twin-H power carburetors, a body that seemed to glide. It wasn't just a car, it was a time capsule. I couldn't just flip it for a quick buck, so I made a decision. I'd restore it. Restoring a car like this isn't easy, or cheap. I didn't have a garage, so I borrowed my uncle's barn. It was musty, filled with tractor parts and spiderwebs, but it was a start. Every weekend, I drove out with my toolkit and coffee thermos, spent hours scraping off rust, cataloging parts, photographing every inch. The engine wasn't locked, but it was grumpy. Took me 3 weekends just to get it to cough. The paint was gone. The interior had mold. The windshield was cracked. But man, when I sat in that driver's seat, even with the smell of mildew and old leather, I felt like I was touching history. Word got out. An older guy from town stopped by one Saturday, said he used to own a Hornet like that. Brought me a box of spare parts. A retired race mechanic emailed after seeing my photos on a forum. Said he'd help rebuild the suspension, for free. And then came the message. A collector from Atlanta. He claimed the car was stolen. I froze. Was it possible? Had I stumbled onto something bigger than a hidden gem? The man sent me a grainy photo from 1985. Same car, same plate, his father's signature on the back bumper. I asked for proof. He sent me copies of police reports, old insurance papers. It matched. The car was reported stolen 40 years ago. But here's the twist, the case was dropped. The insurance paid out. The man never recovered it, and legally, the car wasn't even listed as missing anymore. Technically, it belonged to whoever owned the unit. Legally, it was mine. He offered $120,000 to make things right. I didn't answer right away. The car meant more to me now. It wasn't just about money. It was about discovery, about a journey, about purpose. So I said no, and I kept going. 6 months later, the Hornet was fully restored. Midnight blue body, chrome trim polished to a mirror shine, original badges, upholstered seats, rebuilt engine that purred like a jungle cat. It looked better than new. I drove it to a classic car show in Orlando. It stopped traffic. One judge called it the cleanest Hornet restoration on the East Coast. Another whispered, "This car doesn't belong here. It belongs in Pebble Beach." I won Best in Show. That night, I sat in the Hornet, parked under a palm tree, holding the same Polaroid I found months ago. I looked up the family from the photo. The baby, now in her 50s, replied to my letter. She cried when I showed her the restored car on a video call. Dad always said that car was the love of his life, she told me. He'd be so happy to see it alive again. Offers still come in. The highest so far, $280,000. But I haven't sold. Because sometimes a dusty storage unit isn't just junk. Sometimes it's a second chance. A spark of magic. A way to drive back into history and change your future along the way. But something didn't sit right with me. Why was everyone so obsessed with this particular car? It wasn't just the curves, or the vintage leather seats, or even the rare Hudson badge on the dusty front grille. There was something more to it. A story I didn't know yet, so I decided not to sell it right away. Instead, I started digging. I took hundreds of photos: chassis, interior, engine block, glove compartment, VIN plate. Then I did what any obsessed junk hunter would do. I went deep into the internet, forums, archived dealership brochures, collector databases, even old DMV records. And that's when I found it. The chassis number matched a vehicle listed in a 1960 issue of Motor Trend, a limited production 1950 for Hudson Italia, one of only 26 ever built. That car wasn't just rare, it was nearly mythical. Legend had it that one of those 26 models was gifted to a war hero by Hudson Motors themselves. That hero, according to scattered posts and grainy photos, lived in Florida and vanished from public life sometime in the 80s. And now, somehow, the car had ended up in a dusty storage unit I paid $680 for. I couldn't believe it. I reached out to a classic car historian in Tampa. He called me back within 30 minutes. "Are you sitting down?" he asked. "This car was lost to history. We thought it was scrapped. If what you found is real, you're sitting on an artifact." He wasn't exaggerating. The next few weeks were a blur. I rented a flatbed trailer, got the car towed to my uncle's shop in Sarasota, and began a gentle, careful cleanup. Not a full restoration. Not yet. Just removing decades of dust and cobwebs to uncover the beauty underneath. I didn't post anything online. I wanted to keep it quiet, for now. But the deeper I went, the more magic I found. Behind the driver's seat, tucked in an old service pouch, was a journal. Handwritten, yellowed pages. Inside were photos, the car in parades, parked next to men in uniform, old family gatherings. And on the back of one photo, "Thank you for your service, Captain. May this machine carry your legacy forever." This wasn't just a car. It was a time capsule, a tribute to a man, a moment, and a forgotten chapter of American car history. And I had stumbled into it by accident. Word eventually got out. A friend of a friend mentioned it on a collector Discord. Within hours, I had DMs from classic car enthusiasts, YouTubers, even journalists. I turned them all down. I wasn't ready. But I knew I had something special. My uncle suggested we bring in an expert. He knew a guy in Miami who restored rare European models. When I showed the photos, the guy offered to drive up the same weekend. He arrived with a flashlight, a clipboard, and a reverence like he was entering a cathedral. For 2 hours, he examined every inch of the Hudson. Finally, he looked at me and said, "If you're smart, you won't sell this. You'll finish what history started." And that's exactly what I did. Over the next 3 months, we worked night after night. Every bolt cleaned, every part logged, every detail restored to its former glory. But without erasing the soul. I spent $6,200 of my own money. Twice I thought about giving up, but every time I looked at that faded photo of the captain, I kept going. By August, the car was ready. I entered it in a small collector event in Clearwater. People gasped. One elderly man cried when he saw the badge. Another whispered, "I thought they were all gone." We won, Best in Show, unanimously. A week later, I received a certified letter from a museum in Ohio. They wanted to exhibit the car in their American Automotive Legends showcase. Full display. Nameplate credit. Insurance covered. No sale. Just history. I said yes. They paid to ship the car. I flew up for the opening. There, under glowing lights, surrounded by kids and veterans and gearheads, I saw it. My $680 gamble. Now shining on a rotating platform, velvet rope all around, with a plaque that read, 1950 for Hudson Italia, the captain's ghost. Discovered in a Florida storage unit, 2025. I stood there for a long time, and for the first time in years, I felt like I hadn't just found something, I had brought it back.